you know enough about me now to probably incriminate me or whatever. I'm delighted to be here, and Doug is always delighted to attend with me when he can. We really met at church, but he was also at Rotary when I was invited to join. The same gentleman invited both of us to join Rotary, but years apart. And we've been married a couple of years. Doug became a widower, and a woman at our church decided to do matchmaking. So when people ask if we met at Rotary, not really, but if you were at my installation dinner, I said it is possible to sit by somebody at Rotary and discuss more than who won the 50-50 last week. So, good things happen at Rotary. Well, I am delighted today to make a presentation on behalf of your club and Rotary International to a new Paul Harris Fellow. David, is it Alberti? Hey, I'm getting that. I'm off on a good start here. David, come on up. I think probably everybody in the room understands the Paul Harris Fellow program, but I would just say for those that might be visiting, I think this is kind of a real milestone in most Rotarians' journey. When you join, you hear about this, and then I think many of us aspire to become a Paul Harris Fellow, which means that you, as a person, individually, or someone in your honor, has given $1,000 to the Rotary Foundation. Most of us, I am assuming you probably made this contribution yourself, and certainly thank you and commend you for that. You can make, I think most of you know, you can make small contributions over time. You can make one gift of $1,000. It could be done many ways, but it helps the work that we're doing for humanitarian efforts around the world, and as we know, some of that money comes back to our district, and you can tap into that to do work here locally. So this wonderful certificate says, Paul Harris Fellow in appreciation of tangible and significant assistance given for the furtherance of better understanding and friendly relations among the peoples of the world. It has the new centennial logo on it, since we're celebrating our Rotary Foundation centennial this year, as well as the Rotary logo. So, excuse me.
Well, thank you. I
present that to you, and then I'm presenting you this pin. It's the Paul Harris Fellow pin, and the neat thing about this one is Paul Harris's silhouette is in the middle. You can wear that proudly. Now, when many of us work to achieve like the second Paul Harris Fellow, and every time from now on that you are recognized again for an additional $1,000 contribution, there's a little stone in here that tells the world sort of what giving level you're at. So the next one you get will have one stone, and it will mean the pin shows 1,000. With a stone, it shows 2,000. So again, congratulations.
Well, thank you.
And,
I wore my tie if I didn't know. Thank you.
Well, that is wonderful that that's a here. This you may want this little goodie back from the inside. I'm sorry, I don't know if that's very valuable, but if you would like that. Well, let me get to the task at hand today. I believe this is about the 22nd club that I have visited, and it is a great experience. Most of the past district governors talk about this being one of the highlights of their year, and certainly so far it has been. I've had a cocktail named after me. One club decided to put me on their newsletter list, and they put me in DAC-DB, and it showed that I was an active member of their club, and RI even wrote, the data center wrote to see if I was moving clubs. And I was concerned I might get booted out of the job of district governor if I wasn't careful. So there's a few little humorous moments and fun things along the way as well. I think it's an absolutely great time to be a Rotarian. It's an exciting year. I think it's an exciting time in Rotary's history. John Germ, our new international president from Chattanooga, Tennessee, says this could be Rotary's greatest year yet. And that is because we're so close to eradicating polio. So if we can go for a year with no live cases of polio in the world, then the World Health Organization will put us on a path of continued immunization so that for 3 years, if no live cases appear, we could declare the world polio-free. That will be one of the world's greatest public health accomplishments and much to celebrate. And I think Rotarians certainly will be a vital part of that celebration. People like Bill Gates certainly gives great recognition to Rotary that we have the volunteer personnel to make this happen, and we have raised more money than I think they ever believed. I'm told that many people thought volunteers couldn't raise all of that money that we have raised for Polio Plus. So it wasn't that Rotarians couldn't do it, but volunteers couldn't do it. Well, Rotary proved them wrong, and as you know, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have matched those dollars and still continue for, I believe, into 2018, will match 2 to 1 any dollars that your club or you contribute to the Polio Plus piece of the foundation. Well, it is the 100th anniversary of our Rotary Foundation. In 1917 in Atlanta, Georgia, then International President Arch Klumpf, he was our 6th president. You may recognize his name because the Arch Klumpf Society is one of the giving levels where you can be recognized. Now you must give $250,000 to be in the Arch Klumpf Society. Many of us will probably never make that, but there are those that are fortunate enough they can do so. And when you go to the International Convention, there's a nice little lounge for Arch Klumpf Society members. So when you get that level of giving, you get some air conditioning and probably some free bottled water, you know. But Arch Klumpf said Rotary needs an endowment. It was a few years later before they called it the Rotary Foundation. So it was decided at that meeting in Atlanta to actually form an endowment, and the first gift was $26.50 by the Rotary Club of Kansas City. So you will see this year $26.50 or $265, those numbers, if you registered early for the Rotary Conference in Atlanta next year. And that's why we're going to Atlanta. It's where the foundation started, so they're going back to celebrate next June. You'll see $26.50. It was the early registration was $265. Now they're wanting us to give in increments of $26.50, or clubs maybe $265. You'll see that number. John Germ has suggested that all Rotarians give $26.50 to the foundation this year. I'm suggesting that we tag that in our district for Polio Plus, that we help get this job really done, complete, and we achieve success. So I hope you'll think about creative ways that you might do that. Yesterday at a club meeting, somebody just wrote a check and handed it to their foundation chair. I've suggested we might all skip a meal. That's about the cost of eating out, make a contribution, make one on your birthday. And I also tried to come up with something kind of humorous, so I said, you know, right now it's been such a hot summer, I think you could sell beer and lemonade on any street corner and do pretty well. So you might generate some money in an idea like that. You have to have a liquor license, I guess, to sell beer, but lemonade, you're okay. Or maybe you remember when the Peanuts cartoons were popular and Lucy had a booth where she gave out psychiatric advice for 5 cents. Well, surely some of us Rotarians have some advice we could give out, and maybe somebody would pay you for it. Well, think of fun ways you could raise some money, and do that if you would like. It's a kind of a fun way to focus on the foundation. Do you have a foundation chair in this club?
We do.
And who is that?
He is absent.
Well, I'm going to leave for that person. Barbara tells me she'll be slipped back in here in a few minutes. There is a new logo for the centennial year for the foundation, and I'm going to leave that for your foundation chair. I hope they'll wear that and encourage you to celebrate, to donate, to think about all the wonderful things that the foundation has been able to do for people around the world. I do think we need to use this centennial as sort of a launch pad for celebrating, for telling our story. Every individual who's given to Polio Plus or every club has a story to tell. Why did you give? Why did you continue to give? How important it is to you. But we also have stories to tell about our local and worldwide humanitarian efforts. And I think often we celebrate within. We have a foundation dinner, we just celebrate with ourselves. You know, we don't always tell the world what we're doing. This might be a great opportunity to tell our story further, wider, and better. We fuss when the Washington Post doesn't mention Rotary when they talk about polio eradication. Well, maybe we probably ought to fuss, but at the same time, we need to be more proactive, I think, in telling our story. Locally, every community, every newspaper, whatever we can use, social media, etc., to let the world know the kinds of things we do and the value of Rotary. John Germ has said we need more willing hands, more caring hearts, and more bright minds to do the work of Rotary. I love that sentence. I don't know about you. You ought to feel good, because I think that's the kind of people we already have. You're willing hands, caring hearts, and pretty sharp people, but we could use more to spread the word further. It is a great service organization, and I think most people, if they join and they really immerse themselves in Rotary's work, will fall in love with Rotary, will want to be a Rotarian for the rest of their lives, and will want to support the humanitarian work that we do. So we're trying to recruit, in particular this district, young professionals. John Germ has said under 40. Some of our young professionals are saying under 35, but we're trying to add new folks at the younger age groups. But at the same time, John Germ mentioned new retirees, and I think for our district that's a particularly important group. People here can typically retire younger than in some places, and maybe for the first time in their lives they're not flying all over the world every week, and they might really like to get involved in their community. So I encourage you to sort of keep your radar up. When you hear that somebody at church is going to retire, or somebody at work or wherever, have you thought about asking them if they'd like to visit, like to get involved, and consider membership? If the timing's not right at first, because they may be worried everybody's going to bombard them with requests to join things, you might invite them and gradually introduce them to Rotary. The other group that I'm suggesting we continue to recruit are more women and other underrepresented groups. Why women? I have had a few people, one or two, kind of look at me like, well, why women? But I'm only the third district governor in our district in the 30 years that women have been eligible to join Rotary. So I decided, while I've got the podium, the platform, it's time, and in the spring we'll mark the 30th anniversary of the Supreme Court decision that said to Rotary, you cannot discriminate based on gender. And Rotary International then sent out a policy statement to Rotary clubs in the U.S. Because that Supreme Court decision wouldn't have impacted the whole world. It was a little later before Rotary worldwide really admitted women. But soon after, and I recognized a woman yesterday who joined. The Supreme Court decision came down May 4, 1987. This woman had joined in July of 1987. And she said that her husband, who was a Rotarian, proposed her for membership the first day possible. And the current club president at that time was against women joining, so he wouldn't entertain her nomination papers until after he was out of office, or she'd have probably been a member even a month or so earlier. But she's still a member and still contributing, still on their board. So it's been fun to recognize a woman in each club as I travel around, and to highlight the fact that we do admit women to Rotary. Some people occasionally will say, well, I didn't know women could belong to Rotary. Well, good land, if we haven't dispelled that myth in 30 years, it's about time. And when I was over at the Charlotte Hall Club the other day, many of the men were very public about how they thought the benefits of admitting women what that had meant to clubs. They were very positive about that. So I hope you've seen that same success of how that's enriched Rotary and enriched the service work you do. I also would encourage us to think more about being more diverse. Now, I don't believe I see a person of color in this room this morning. We're all pretty much alike, and I think there is a need for us to figure out how to reach out to other racial and cultural groups. We live in northern Prince George's County. Our club is diverse, but the people, most part, are from Nigeria, Ghana, Bolivia, somewhere else in the world. They're really not from Prince George's County, which, as you know, is predominantly African American and has a growing Hispanic population. So I hope we can make all people feel welcome that are business professional and community leaders, and we can more reflect the communities which we serve. It's maybe a tough challenge. Next year's district governor is black. Greg Wims, I think, will be our first black district governor, and hopefully Greg is quite connected with organizations that may help us learn how better to reach out to people who are not just like ourselves. So today I'm thrilled to recognize one of the women in this club, and so if Kathy Askey could come forward. I think she's surprised. At least Barbara was hoping she'd surprised her. So there's a little gift in here for you, and what I'm giving her is a pin like the one I'm wearing. One of the Rotary vendors has this pin called Celebrating Women in Rotary. It's a group of women, and the pin has a globe or a world and a little Rotary symbol on that world. And so I hope you'll wear that, or if you're not a pin wearer, I've decided it could be framed and something else clever done with it. But if I assume most everybody here is well versed in Kathy's strengths and contributions, but I did find it interesting. I asked each club to write something for me. We'll hopefully use it in other ways. I hope, though, you'll publicize this in your community, your website, Facebook, whatever you do. Again, it says to people, women are welcome, and it says that there's great, competent women in Rotary. But I understand you're a very successful CPA, and that you practice the four-way test in your business, and that sounds absolutely wonderful. You've done a lot of things in this club. You've been the president, a lot of leadership roles, and so Kathy sounds like a great person to represent all of the men and women of this club. So again, congratulations. Thanks for all you do. And
Frame this presentation so we can get a photo.
sure, let me come around here out from behind this podium, and maybe we can just do that right now. How's that?
Kathy, look that way.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Oh, well, you're welcome. Thank you. I'm glad you could be here today. I think a few people have said to them, now you're going to be at the meeting, aren't you? And they've wondered why. So, well, let me just give you a few last words, and then I'll be finished, and I'll be happy to take questions. I thought you would find it interesting. There's about 31% of our district is female, so not even 50%. 30% of our clubs this year are led by women, and more young women. You'd be amazed that many are young professionals. They're under that 40 or 35-year age bracket. They are very sharp, very capable, so I think you'll see great things and contributions from them. About 20% of the district governors around the world, there are 530 of us serving this year. About 20% of us are female. Ravi Ravindran, last year's international president, in January when Doug and I were at training in San Diego, and by the way, if you ever aspire to do this job, your spouse gets as much training as you do. It's quite interesting. Rotary probably provides more professional development than any organization I've ever known, and includes spouses as well. But Rave said from the podium, it is no longer possible to say that there are not qualified women to bring into Rotary. I'm sure he had people say to him, well, we can't find anybody qualified. Well, even, he may have been talking to some parts of the world that's slower to accept women in organizations, etc. But I think he was trying to make the point that you can't say there are not qualified women out there. With educational opportunities and etc., there are qualified women most everywhere that you could dream to invite for membership. Well, we're doing a number of exciting things in our district. There is a Young Professionals Summit, a couple of them coming up in September. Your president has received information about that. Hopefully you would encourage some young folks who are not Rotarians yet to attend these events. One's in College Park and there's one up in Harford County. You could attend either one, they're free, and if you know people from say 22 to, one group is cutting off at 35, the other one's going up to 40. It's a fun chance to network, hear more about doing service. I think they're all going to do service projects, and they'll hear about Rotary. And so I hope you take a look at that. If you can get somebody there, even if it's a bit of a drive for you all, maybe you could help somebody with a little gas, or they're even encouraging a younger Rotarian from each club to come and participate and help that day. So that's another opportunity. We hope to start 2 new clubs this year, one in Brunswick near Frederick and one in Baltimore, where we only have one club with about 50 members. And as you can imagine, there is a great need for Rotarians in Baltimore. We do have clubs at Towson, Towson Town, Pikesville. We have in the suburbs more, but we could use more Rotarians to tackle some of the youth and serious issues in Baltimore. So we have much to do, but many great things are happening, and hopefully you are really excited to be a Rotarian. I hope you're very proud of your membership, because I think if you're proud of being a Rotarian, it will show, and hopefully other people will want to know what in the world it is we are doing that makes people so happy and content and thrilled to be working in their community, so that they will join us as well. Well, I'm delighted to be here, and thank you very much. And if there's a time for a question or two, I will gladly answer questions.